and welcome back to Straw Planet Podcasts with me, your host, Jack Cole. So today I'm joined by founder of Nine Trees, Michael Cunningham, who's going to tell us about his work. So Michael, welcome. And yeah, please share with us your story.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for inviting us to your Restore Our Planet podcast. We started Nine Trees in 2019, and it came out of me having a lot of eco-anxiety about my place in the world and the emissions that I was creating, and all of the people around me who were green or sustainable, yet we were still in the society and expected to reduce our carbon footprint. And there were lots of things going around in the media about carbon offsetting and people getting worried and anxious. And at the time, I'd just taken on a 3-month work program in Nepal, and I had to fly there. So I wasn't feeling great about that. So on the way, I did a back of a postcard workings out about my carbon footprint, and thought, well, in order for me to balance that with trees, I'd have to buy a couple of acres, plant a few thousand trees, and hopefully they'll survive for a few hundred years. And after just doing a permaculture course, I was thinking, well, why not I invite my friends and family to be involved with me, and then through the power of more people as well, we could get the county involved. And then after I spoke to a few people, they said, well, why not make it bigger and make it a nationwide thing so that everyone can get involved, and we can do it on an average of 9 trees per person, which is the average carbon footprint of an individual in the UK. They emit 9 tons of carbon into the atmosphere, and 9 trees, or a tree, basically sequesters 1 ton of carbon for its whole life.
And sorry, what's the time scale? That's 9 tons over a lifetime annually? What's the
9 trees sequester 9 tons of carbon over its lifetime. So we're making that lifetime 60 to 100 years or so. Obviously, some trees live for thousands of years. In the first 60 years, it does its most carbon sequestering, and then after that, it kind of levels out. So by the time I got back from Nepal, where I was doing humanitarian efforts, I had already worked out quite a few things, and we planned to plant one of the sites at the end of the year. So by 2020, we had planted our first 2 sites and got a few hundred people involved, which was really good. And now we've planted 10 sites in the UK, and we've got an agroforestry project in Scotland, and we're branching out to different ways of engaging with landowners. So basically, it's all inspired by where I come from, mid Wales, and I've grown up with trees and rivers and mountains all around me. Really enjoy being in nature. And then I learned when I went to university and did wildlife and countryside conservation as a degree that we had stripped the land of much of its wildlife. So in 90% of biodiversity has decreased in the UK since the 1900s, and I want to bring that back. So I've worked in conservation for many years, but I always seem to be managing habitats. So cutting down trees, burning gorse to try and keep valuable wildlife habitats for butterflies and other species that like grasslands. And I was doing a bit of wildflower meadow planting and a bit of stone walling and that kind of thing, and ponds. But what I really wanted to do was create habitat. So it all kind of tied together quite nicely, creating woodlands around the UK. So I suppose it's been a fun journey for the last 5 years, and now we are expanding the company to hopefully every region of the UK. And our vision is to plant 100,000 trees a year. We've got the right team around us now and ready to put lots of projects in place.
fantastic? And just out of curiosity, why 9 trees?
So my average carbon footprint is 9.
Of course.
And so is actually the UK wide, average is 9 tons. So we want to plant 9 trees per year. Obviously, we should have planted 900 trees if you're going to live till 90, like, I don't know, 60 or 100 years before you were born, but we didn't do that. And to ask someone to plant 900 trees for their newborn child would be quite expensive. So we are where we are. So let's start by planting 9 trees per person per year. And if you want to top that up, or if you want to join our program and sponsor more trees, then great. And that will balance your carbon in your lifetime. Obviously, that it's not a get out of jail free card. You should still be reducing your carbon footprint to 2 or 4 tons a year. And that's quite a hard ask already. But we are getting there with technological advances. And yeah, we also are getting businesses involved. So instead of me having to talk to 100,000 people to plant, 1 million trees or so, we can talk to a couple of thousand businesses and plant those trees. So it's much better when a business comes on board and plants 100 trees or 1,000 trees. We really enjoy that.
You mentioned that there are some ways that the general public, your average person, could bring down their carbon footprint. What are some of those ways?
Well, I suppose one of the obvious ones is through transport. And so driving less or using aeroplanes less, thinking about using buses or cycling is a lot better. The food we eat does have an impact on the environment. So trying to reduce your carbon footprint that way. And it doesn't mean necessarily reducing meat. It means reducing the most carbon consumption item in your fridge. So that could be milk, or it could be soya. It could be anything. So I'd really push for the government to put more labels of how carbon intensive your food is. And sometimes we ship things from like the UK or from Europe to another part of the world to get packaged, and then we ship them back. So I'm not just talking about our transport, I'm talking about the transport of goods. Yeah, and things like renewable energy and heating your home or keeping your home warm, that has a massive effect on your bills and also your mental health and the environment. So if you want to do something for the planet and yourself, I'd say concentrate on your home and yourself, and spread the message to your friends and family around you about, the easy things you found to do, and they might strike up a conversation about something that they've done that was maybe a bit harder, but has seen a really positive effect.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned there that sort of these strategies can help improve mental health. I'm just curious to know how that is exactly, how that works.
Well, a lot of people at the moment are suffering from eco-anxiety, and that is quite frustrating because of the society and the world that we live in that has been created this way, and it's hard for us to get out of that. So if you can do something positive for your mental health, you might be able to take your head out of the sand and take another step towards reducing your carbon footprint. So that's part of what we do at 9 Trees as well. The main pillars are for biodiversity and for well-being and for rural jobs. And the biodiversity part is obviously creating biodiverse woodlands and nature reserves. And the well-being is that you get to visit the trees and watch hope grow. And you can take your friends and family, and if you're a business subscriber, you can take your clients and your staff. And that gives you a real sense of well-being, being in the field and walking around and hearing all the birds and seeing the little runs of rabbits and voles and things like that, and just being outside. So the other one with rural jobs. So as we expand across the UK, we want to use local contractors, and that supports also local ecologists and the green job infrastructure as well. Everyone in our team works in different cities and towns all over the UK, from like marketing, finances, and many other facets of the organisation. So yeah, we've got lots of different opportunities going, and lots of volunteer opportunities in the business, but also in the field, and in events and helping us promote. So hopefully by doing volunteering as well, that's also a massive tick box for the well-being.
Fantastic. And you run the organization as a community interest company. Now, I think you might have touched on some of the aspects of how that works. I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit further, um, how that is constructed and put into effect.
Yeah, so as a community interest company, basically we are a not-for-profit organisation. So any funds that come in, we spend on trees, stakes, and guards, and the labour to do the work. And we also do all of the like about 50 stages before we even set foot on land. So surveying, mapping, and everything like that. And then after that, funds are spent on the organisation or team, basically, and any money left over goes back to the kind of into a community pot, which engages local people to our sites in like volunteer days or educational days. And it also allows the money to be used for upskilling. So the upskilling of our own team, but also we've got a connection to nature where we can bring an expert to the field. And we've run this a couple of times already. And then we invite people to come along. And so the course might usually cost 80 to £100, but you kind of get an introduction to ecology. And so it could be entomology or botany um, or all kinds of things, basically. So we we are using that money not for profit, basically. It's to either help the company and the training and the skills of the team to make sure we are doing the right work, but also people have that role progression and can go on to other work as well. Or it's to help fund community projects and educational projects um, in the counties that we plant, but also to help us outreach to festivals and events and engage people there in also mindfulness activities.
Okay, and of course, you started, just go back to the beginning, you started, just your own ideas and you've grown over the past 5 years. I was wondering, what are some of the more, perhaps on like a policy level, if I could put it that way, some of the obstacles that you found in actually getting these things implemented? Have you found that the government is, I said government's quite a broad term, but like the state, if we can call it that, is it being a massive hindrance? Do you just see lots of problems with the way that the government is supporting sort of these issues, or do you find that they're quite helpful? How's that side of the work generally been?
So really, we created Nine Trees because there was a massive gap in how like for-profit carbon credits, but also government grant funding was being given out. And what we want to do is we want to see farmers, no matter how much land they own, um, and no matter kind of what practices they use on their land, that we can still get more trees on the ground um, and the right trees planted in the right place. So often for a landowner, they might not have necessarily the skills to plant trees, but often they do. They might not have the ability to fill in massive forms, and often they need coaching through that. So we don't go for government grants, and we don't sell carbon credits and plant monoculture crops. We have our own way, so any landowners can contact us to do hedgerows, shelter belts, plantations of 900 to 9,000 trees, as well as agroforestry projects. So we work alongside other non-governmental organisations and people like the Woodland Trust and RSPB and anything like that, so that if they can't put a tree there for some reason, then the landowner can come to us and ask for help in various ways.
Yeah, all right. And how do you see things, or how would you like to see things develop over, again, talking trees here, so of course, long time scale, but in terms of your work generally, in terms of scaling, you mentioned how you're aiming to get projects going in all parts of the UK. So how would you like to see things develop? Let's start with short term. Next year or two. How are things
Yeah.
moving?
So hopefully short term, our organisation will be resilient and sustainable in the next year and to prove to people that we can do what we're saying in every county. And there are 92 counties in the UK, including Northern Ireland. And we want to spread out by using regional reps with county ambassadors. And at the moment, we've got a university program. So anyone from universities can become our reps and ambassadors. And then hopefully when they leave university, they can carry on to join our team and find us land or businesses to work with or schools and things like that. And so then we're like raising our brand awareness and showing people that we can give free trees, stakes and guards to anyone who jumps through the hoops we've set up, our own like 10 questions followed by a license agreement for 50 years. So that short term, really, it's about getting to the right landowners by getting the right reps in place. And that's a project all of its own. And we're doing projects with universities already, like drone projects for geolocating of trees. And we're willing to work with lots of universities on various projects, but we also want to understand what other tree planting organizations are doing. So partnerships with other organizations, as I was saying, if they like kind of, we can fill in the gaps. So that's it's a real challenge really as a small organization, having the money and the funds and the personnel to do that. So that's why we're asking volunteers to step forward or experts with pro bono help and advice. And then basically review that, every couple of years and take another step in the right direction.
And therefore, sort of, if we now think a bit more sort of longer term, at least, let's say, everything comes together, we get partnerships going, the funding's there, the motivation's there. Generationally speaking, and I think this is happening anyway, younger people are really kind of getting behind it. It's really time to do something. What would you like to be seeing perhaps in the, I don't know, late 2030s, for example? Where could we be?
Well, with our branching out scheme that we do with landowners, we want to plant from 9 trees to 9,000 trees in every county. So I'm hoping that we'll have at least 50% of the UK with at least 9 trees in every county. Obviously, we want it to be 90 or 900, and that will really step us up into getting funding from a lot of our businesses who might be like in Norfolk or London. And they're like, we want our trees to be as local as possible. But this is a massive like global problem, and we're trying to plant all over the UK. So if we can facilitate landowners closer to the companies that want to give us money, then that would be really handy. Luckily, at the moment, most businesses who come with us are just happy that we're planting trees and that they are providing for future generations a lovely biodiverse UK.
Yeah, and finally, Michael, where could people find your work if they want to follow and get involved?
So it's the number 9 and then trees and .org. So 9trees.org, and on social media we're at 9treesuk. We're also on LinkedIn as well, and we'd be happy to communicate with anyone. We usually communicate via email, and there's a phone number on there as well. And you can find us at lots of festivals and events in the coming years.
Fantastic. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jack. That's been lovely. Thanks.